Welcome back to the Rory Talks Football YouTube channel, where today we are busting some myths when it comes to Victor Gyokeres. Now, look, this is not going to be a video that paints him as the miracle striker, the best striker in the world, and guarantees that he's going to come to the Premier League and score just as many goals as he has done at Sporting. But I have seen so much criticism of him that you would think he is some donkey that has never kicked a ball in his life before. And that's what I want to target. And it's not to undermine fair criticism of him. It is not, I've had my own doubts about him. If you followed this channel, you'll know that as much as I've been captaining the Victor Gyokeres steam train for about 18 months, I'm fully aware that there are some issues and there may be some difficulties translating to the Premier League. So we're going to be fair about it, but this is going to be quite a defensive video of him as a player, because I do think a lot of the criticism has been overboard and unfair. Now, look, before we get into it, if I could just ask you to please subscribe. We are now on the way to 21,000 subscribers, and if you could click the like button as well, I would be massively grateful. But look, without further ado, this is the first thing we're going to tackle. It's the league. Oh, it's the league. It's the Liga Portugal. It's the Portuguese league. It can't be replicated anywhere else. It's the worst league in the world. I think that's unfair. Now, look, if you look at the goals that he scored in the Portuguese league last season, 39 goals. Pavlidis, Samuel Agahauer both got 19. So it is not like this is such an easy league that decent strikers will all be putting up the same numbers as him. And the interesting one for me here is Samuel Agahauer. Now, if you're not familiar with that name, you might have remembered the name Samuel Omorodion. He changed his name or changed the way that his name is laid out. But ultimately, he last summer was a player that Chelsea were interested in for 40 million, hit the ground running in the Portuguese league, a really, really talented, promising, up-and-coming striker. And yet he still scored half of the goals, less than half of the goals that Victor Gyokeres scored. And this is where I think the sheer volume of what he has done in that league is enough that I believe it simply is replicable wherever you put him, right? And if you take it, if you say, look, I don't believe you, I don't believe it's replicable, take it out of the Portuguese league, because that's not the only place where he plays football, right? Take it to the Champions League. Last season in the Champions League, 6 goals, 1 assist in 8 games. That is a very, very good return. Now, again, because when you make these points, people want to argue with every single one of them. There has to be a reason that, no, that's not a valid point. People will say, well, yeah, but 3 of those came against Man City. Okay, so he scored a hat-trick against Manchester City. I'm not too worried about that being a problem. But also, even if you took that game out of it for whatever reason to try and change it, that still left him with 3 goals and 1 assist in 7 games, which actually, if we go to look at some other players, still wouldn't even be that bad. But let's look at those players. Alexander Isak. And throughout this video, by the way, when I make these comparisons, I am not saying he is a better player than this person. I am not saying I would not have preferred this person, especially with Isak. Obviously, I think Isak fits the bill better than any other player. He's unavailable. But Isak, in the Champions League 2 seasons ago, 1 goal in 5 games. 1 goal in 5 games. Ollie Watkins in the Champions League last season, 1 goal in 12 games. 4 assists, to be fair, but 1 goal in 12 games. Benjamin Sesko in the Champions League last season, 4 goals in 8 games. So at every level, against every comparable striker that we've been linked to, not in the Portuguese league, but in the Champions League, Victor Gyokeres outperformed them. So how do you argue with that? How do you argue with those numbers? In a team that was no better relative to the competition than any of these teams, right? They went out after the league phase. And then you say, oh, actually, greenery check. Shooting, passing, relative to all strikers in the Champions League last season per 90. Obviously, his goal-scoring stats are through the roof. His greenery on that is good. Actually, what I love, the passing. Because that's one thing people really don't believe he can do, is anything other than putting the ball in the back of the net, the build-up, the link-up. But you see that, and you can clearly see that he can. Look at the chance creation, by the way, 3rd from the bottom on that right-hand side. Over 2.5 chances created per 90 in the Champions League. And they take it away from the Champions League. What about the national team? plays international football for Sweden, 2024, 13 goals, 5 assists in 15 games. More than a goal contribution a game across 15 games for Sweden. Don't get me wrong, the opposition wasn't brilliant for them for a lot of those games because it was the UEFA Nations League, and even though it says A there, they were actually in C. Their opposition wasn't great. But again, Alexander Isak, how did he fare in 2024? 6 goals, 1 assist in 13 games. So 7 contributions in 13, relative to 18 contributions in 15 from Victor Gyokeres. And again, you might say, well, they tailor it to him, you know, Isak drifts out wider. And fundamentally, at the very least, he is capable of performing at the same level in that setup as Alexander Isak. So to say he can only do it in the Portuguese league or the championship is fundamentally unfair because he has proven the level that he can play at. And even anecdotally, if you watched him against Arsenal, he gave Gabriel and Saliba an absolute handful. All right, he didn't score. He rattled the post in a situation where he picked the ball up in his own half, had Gabriel and Saliba to deal with. So even if you just base it on that, you know, I think fundamentally he has shown he can do it at this level. Similarly, but different, but Darwin Núñez. But Darwin Núñez looked good in Portugal. Darwin Núñez looked good in Portugal, and then he wasn't as good in the Premier League. So everyone's career path follows the exact same trajectory, right? If Darwin Núñez struggled to go from the Liga Portugal to the Premier League, every player in history will do the same. That's how it works, right? I mean, even though we've seen some players that translate from the Bundesliga well and some that don't, from La Liga, some that do, some that don't. For me, the best part about this one is that even if he drops off exactly as badly as Darwin Núñez did, we're still going to be all right. And again, this is where I'm talking about the sheer numbers that he puts up, making him almost inevitable. Because I did the maths. Apologies if this is a bit small on your screen. Darwin Núñez in 2 years in Portugal, 62 goal contributions in 85 games, 0.73 goal contributions per game. His first 2 years in England, 50 goal contributions in 96 games, 0.52 contributions per game, a decrease of 0.21 goal contributions per game, or 28.7%, depending on whether you want to look at it raw or as a percentage. Okay? If Victor Gyokeres suffered the exact same decrease in output, this is what you'd be left with. So having got 123 goal contributions in 102 games in the Liga Portugal, or for Sporting, 1.2 goal contributions per game. If he lost 0.21 contributions per game, that would leave him at 0.99 contributions per game. You'd still be getting, even if he's having the same raw decrease, you'd still be getting basically a goal contribution a game from Victor Gyokeres. If he suffered the percentage decrease, if you think that's more reliable, that would still leave him at 0.85 goal contributions per game, which would put him one of the best forwards in the Premier League. So this is what I'm saying. He has scored so many goals. He has got so many assists that even if it doesn't fully translate, I'm still not particularly worried. How many headers? How many headers? How many? This is really important for some people. How many headers has he scored? Now, interestingly, on this, people say, well, look at how many headers we score. Look how many headers Arsenal score. Look at the way we play. And you could argue that you need someone that's good at scoring headers to do that. I could argue it the other way. I could argue how many times last season when we were struggling to score a goal, did we just get the ball to the corner of the box, play a back post cross, and hope someone could score a header? What if bringing in a player who actually that doesn't really suit him means that you find different ways to score goals? Because look, the numbers are there. He scored 0 headed goals last season. In the Portuguese league, 0 headed goals from 17 attempts with an XG of 2.83 missed, right? Underperformed on his headed XG. But this is all of his shots. 39 goals from 31 XG and 139 shots. Now, there is not someone better that you will find that performs at that level with his feet, that scores that many goals from that level of XG and from that many shots, by the way, 40, as good as 40 goals from 140 shots. That is remarkable. It's a goal every 3.5 shots. Like, that is very, very good. And you look at the way that they're spread as well, all around the box, from the left, from the right, center of the box, close to goal, far from goal. He kind of does it all. And actually, 36 of them were with his right foot. So you could argue, oh, he's not very good with his left foot. But if the left foot is a wand, right? Look at Iron Robin. Left foot was a wand, didn't have much of a right foot. Didn't matter. Didn't matter. You would want him in your team because of how good that left foot was. And this is the thing with Victor Gyokeres. His feet are so good, it doesn't matter whether or not he's great with his head. Now, I actually don't think he is that bad with his head. I think genuinely you could put this down to just a weird patch that's not gone well for him. But even if it is, does it matter? Does it matter how the ball ends up in the back of the net? If you're scoring 39 goals in a league season, you're scoring 54 goals in all competitions in a season, does it matter? If every single one of them went in off the end of his penis, if he slapped every single one of them in with his wang, would it matter? If you ended up lifting the Premier League title, would you care? I mean, I'd be very impressed if he could do that, truthfully. But you wouldn't, because it doesn't matter. Who cares how the ball ends up in the back of the net? And if it means that we change the way we play and we try to find the ball at his feet, does it matter? It just doesn't. That's the one where I'm like, why do you care? That's not even an analysis. That's just a why do you care? He can't link up. I can't link up. He does nothing outside of scoring goals. He just can't. His touch is all. Watch this video. Now, I can't play it on here, right? I'm saying, I posted it myself with a tweet. Just go and watch it. Just go and watch it. Judge it for yourself. Judge it for yourself. But one thing that I saw a lot of in it is this, right? And this is something I think we really are going to see a lot of at Arsenal, more than people expect, more than people anticipate, is Gyokeres assisting Martin Odegaard, Declan Rice, Bukayo Saka from these sorts of positions, right? And again, because whenever we say anything here, you've got to understand people are going to come back with an argument, people that are desperate for him to fail, desperate to be proven right. They'll say, you won't get this space. They'll say, you won't get this space in the Premier League. Which, first of all, I think they massively overestimate the quality of a fair amount of defences in the Premier League. But also, he hasn't been given this space. And this is the difference between him and a winger, right? He is the centre forward. He has taken two centre-backs out of position. Bear in mind, if you actually look at this scenario, other than the guy that's running in from the edge of the box, he's received the ball in a situation here where there are 2, 3, possibly 4 players that could win the ball from him. But he has taken the centre-backs out of their position because they're thinking, well, he's the centre forward. I have to go with him, right? Now, you might argue a more well-drilled defence, maybe both of them don't go. But a lot of the time, they probably will. And he's gone, okay, the space is here. Now let me bring these two out of that space. He's got the strength, the power, the pace to hold onto the ball whilst he does it. And let me create an opening for a teammate. And let me find them. And there are seriously so many more examples of this than you would expect when you watch these videos back. And the numbers, again, speak for themselves. 38 assists in his last 3 seasons across 2 different leagues, 2 different environments. 38 assists in 3 seasons. That's the same number of assists as Bukayo Saka over the same 3 seasons. That's more than any other Arsenal player. And again, you look at, Anthony Elanga's just gone for 55 million, right? And I questioned that fee based on the number of goals he'd scored because he'd scored 6 goals last season, but he got 12 assists. And the reply is 12 assists, though. So 12 assists for a winger puts you at 55 million. But a striker who's putting up 12 assists on top of 54 goals, people don't see that as good link-up play, good build-up play. What else does he offer? And I think that channel running could be huge because we really do struggle to attack the box centrally. Well, if you've got a striker that's dragging defenders away from those central spaces, that could be massive for us. And again, this is where I'm no genius. I'm no analyst, right? But Arsenal have got plenty of people who are. One of them will be Mikel Arteta. And maybe Mikel Arteta is thinking, do you know what? Even with all of the injuries and the rest of it last season, there were still plenty of games where we struggled. And those balls to the back post, that can't be our only option. So maybe this is something different. Maybe actually he sees it as going, yeah, Victor Gyokeres can give us something else. but people just want to complain. Penalty Merchant, we'll address this one. The Penalty Merchant only scores penalties. 12 of his 39 league goals last season were penalties. If you took them away, that would leave him on 27 goals. That would still mean he was by far and away the top scorer in the league. If you also then took 3 and 4 penalty goals away from Pavlidis and Samuel Agahawa, then again, he would be light years ahead of them in terms of scoring goals. That's actually not something I particularly care about addressing. Yes, he scores lots of penalties. Fantastic. Arsenal have penalties. Arsenal have missed penalties. In fact, we missed a penalty against Manchester United in the FA Cup, which ultimately cost us the tie. This, though, is actually what I find more interesting. In Liga Portugal last year, Victor Gyokeres won more penalties than any other player, than any other winger. Galeno, Barreiro, he won the most penalties. He was fouled the most per 90. And so that's just another string to the bow, winning penalties. Because actually, Arsenal in the Premier League in the entirety of last season, all of our players combined, won 2 penalties. Half the number that Victor Gyokeres won. And this is one thing where people look at him and they see like a clumsy player, right? He looks a bit awkward. You never really know. Looks like he's kind of never really got the ball under control at times. And actually, from what I've seen in the penalties that he's won, that massively helps him. Because defenders see a guy who looks like he's maybe bumbling through a little bit and he's not got full control of the ball. So they go, I can nip in here and win it. He's not fully in control. But a lot of the time he is. And he senses the approach from a defender and he'll stick a leg out and he'll win a penalty. And that's something that we have massively lacked and something we massively need to do more. I mean, you look at the number of penalties that teams like Chelsea and Liverpool are picking up every season. It's a huge difference maker. Now, some people will say it's because it's Arsenal. Arsenal won't win penalties in those situations. But again, it's just another bonus. And the other thing with the penalties, right? When you look at a spreadsheet and you just see penalty, where's the context? What information do you have? This was a penalty. On the people that make their spreadsheets and that for some reason now actually use the number of penalties that Victor Gyokeres has scored to insult him, to tear him down, they look at this that you're looking at right now and they just see 1 penalty scored, which for them is just 1 less non-penalty goal scored. But what was the context? This was the 100th minute of a cup final. In the 100th minute, there was one player that was still running himself into the ground, doing everything he possibly could to find an equalizing goal. And in the 100th minute, it finally paid off, and he himself won the penalty. This is against Benfica, a good team, a top team in that league. He wins the penalty. 100 minutes in. Do you know what he does? He stands up with tired legs, and he steps up and takes one of the most confident penalties I have ever seen. He absolutely rifles this, top bins, to see Sporting into extra time. And do you know what his reward for that was? 30 minutes later, that's him with a trophy. That's what we're aiming for. At the end of the day, when the dust is settled, that is what we are aiming for. Now, how much of that can you actually measure? On those spreadsheets, how are you measuring that desire to win, the hunger to win, the fight? The sort of fight, by the way, that we've seen with him in negotiations to actually move to Arsenal. We keep seeing he's willing to sacrifice his girlfriend, financially, 2 million a year we're hearing. Like, he is doing everything to make this move happen because he's got the right mindset. But again, you could maybe say, well, I guess you could measure it in terms of like distance run, the number of sprints, but that kind of just tells you if he's athletic or not, right? An athletic person who's not particularly hungry can run a lot. This constant will to score, to do something for his team, I think that's fairly intangible, but he's got it. You can tell he has it. And finally, look at his touch. We've kind of alluded to it in other parts of the video. His touch is bad, his touch is this, his touch is that. He takes too many touches, yada, yada, yada. This was an example that I saw on X, right? Scores a brilliant goal for Coventry. Brilliant goal against Sunderland. This was his first touch, and it wasn't great. Now, again, people might say here, oh, you'd never get that much space in the Premier League, by the way. I think he would. Because ultimately, that's, there are 5 defenders there behind the ball. He stepped out from that defense to receive the ball, excuse me. Well, in that situation, If the defender goes touch tight to him, he's flicking it around the corner into that left winger, which, by the way, again, is a skill that he has got locked down. Flicking it around the corner, he's very good at. So if the defender there goes touch tight to him, he flicks it around the corner. So the defender doesn't go touch tight. His first touch isn't great. It kind of keeps it in front of him when he wants to turn into that space. His second touch isn't great. He starts shielding the ball from this midfielder that's tracking back, but he doesn't really get the ball out of his feet very well. It gets stuck under him, and that's something you see quite a lot, and it stops him moving forwards at pace. He takes a few more touches, and then he rifles it into the bottom corner. Absolutely stunning finish into the bottom corner, right? And what you'll see is people saying, oh, yeah, but the first touch and then the second touch, and he's taking too many touches to get it out of his feet, and you blah, blah, blah. I care about the final touch. I care about the final touch where he leathers it into the back of the net, and that is an equalising goal in the 83rd minute. I couldn't care less if he's got the first touch of Messi, the second touch of Neymar, the third touch of Maradona, if the final touch doesn't result in a goal. And we've seen that. We've had players that can do that. Gabriel Jesus, in that situation, he'd pick it up. He'd be on the turn as he picks it up. He'd be driving at the defence. But then at this point, he'd probably keep trying to dribble through players, or he'd look to pass, or he'd shoot and it wouldn't go in. The consistency with which Gyokeres finds himself putting the ball into the back of the net with that final touch, that's what we've been crying out for so long. And so again, yes, he doesn't look the most aesthetically pleasing, but the hardest thing to do is to put the ball in the back of the net. And that is the thing that he has been doing consistently now at a level across Europe that you're not seeing elsewhere. And this is the final thing, which is a similar thing, but people like numbers, people like stats. In terms of the number of touches that he takes before getting a shot away, box touches per shot on target is the bottom axis. You see, he's the player, by the way, if this is all a bit small, he's the player that's kind of top right, basically. The green one, top right. He actually takes as many box touches per shot on target as Alexander Isak, as Ollie Watkins, a few more than Benjamin Sesko, but actually then if you look at the axis on the left-hand side, box touches in general per 90, he takes a huge amount more of them because he gets more of the ball. So ultimately, even if you want to drill it down into the numbers and not even and look at what you're seeing, the numbers back up. He doesn't take too many touches per shot on target anyway. Similar number to Isak and Ollie Watkins. And so look, that is kind of the end of the video. There are other things that you can maybe address. I know people look at the teams that he has scored against. He only scores against lesser teams. I mean, that's generally a trend that you will find across any attacking player in any league, because fundamentally teams score more goals against the worst teams. And in those games, the striker gets to score more goals. That's not unusual. Sure, maybe he doesn't score enough against the big teams. But ultimately, to ignore and deny the insane numbers that he has put up for 2 years now, but even before that, having shown signs of it at Coventry, I just don't think it's logical. I think you'll get yourself into a position where you'll start, I'll tell you what, I'll tell you this. Would Benjamin Sesko, and by the way, I was more than happy for us to sign Benjamin Sesko. Would Benjamin Sesko have scored 97 goals in 102 games for Sporting? Would he? Because I don't think he would. I don't think he'd have come close to that. Would Ollie Watkins? Would Alexander Isak even? I'm not convinced they would. Because the one thing that I believe he has over all of them is an innate ability to find the back of the net by hook or by crook. Through will and sheer force, he finds a way to the back of the net. And I just look at the situation at Arsenal, and for the longest time, that is what we need. How many games have there been where, for the love of God, we just want someone to put the ball in the net? And he does it at a better rate than anyone else. So look, I hope you've enjoyed the video. I don't want that to come across as like slandering anyone that's had any criticism of him, because like I said, I do think some of those criticisms are fair, but I also think some of them have just gone well over the top. If you're not subscribed already, please do subscribe. Please do like the video. We'll be live tomorrow, I would expect, for the next one. Turn the notifications on. You always know when I'm going live. But other than that, enjoy your evening, your day, your weekend, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and I will catch you all on the next one. Until then, goodbye.